Let me ask you a question. Imagine you're a general contractor and you've been asked to build a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch style house. Are you going to go start building that and then show it to the client and ask them if they like it? Of course, you're not going to do that. You're going to start with a blueprint, and then you're going to do an elevation of what the outside will look like. And then you're going to have an electrical plan and an HVAC plan for the air conditioning. You're going to break all of that down into chunks and get the client to approve each one before you move on to the next step. Unfortunately, this is not how we're doing website development projects. In a previous video, I shared with you the 6 principles that you can apply to any web development project that will help you get your projects done on time, within budget, with the right features. And I gave the examples using a grocery store shopping trip. And I'll link to that one below so you can go back and watch it if you want to. Now, before we get into the details of the umbrella principle of define the job in detail, and how you can apply that to web development projects, I want to remind you that these trainings are brought to you by the WP Project Managers Academy, where we teach web professionals in any platform how to get projects completed on time, within budget, with features that meet the client's business requirements without sacrificing profit. And that's the key. If you're struggling with any of those things, just go to wproadmaps.com/join us, and we'd love to see you inside the Academy. All right, let's get on with defining the job in detail. Now, for website development, we need to change that principle just slightly from define the job in detail to define the job in detail with a content-first approach. And I will tell you a little bit more about that in just a moment. Now, the first place that you start defining the job in detail is in the pre-proposal meeting. This is where you're going to gather just enough information so you can provide an estimate and a proposal. And the deliverable from that activity is your project brief. Then you should take that project brief back to the client and say, did I get the details? You got to get the basics right before you even start. Now, the next step is creating that proposal. How are you going to define the job in detail in the proposal? The proposal pretty much is defining the job in detail, except that the place that is the most important place to do this is in your scope section, because it's so important to define what is in scope and what's out of scope. But you need to define what is in scope that is your responsibility or the agency's responsibility, and what is in scope and the client's responsibility. That goes a long way. And it's important to be very explicit about what is out of scope. This concept that if it's not in the proposal, it's out of scope is only going to lead to trouble later on. When you specify those things out, you are defining the job in detail in your proposal. Now, real quick, give me a show of hands. How many of you also think that you should define the job in detail in the solutions section of your proposal? If you raised your hand, think again, because if you put the details, the minute details of your solution in the proposal, that just frees the client up to take that proposal to someone else, get it done for less money with exactly the same solution. So you don't want to do that. You want to keep that as high a level as possible. After the proposal is approved, that's when we do our deep dive discovery. Now, I did say deep dive discovery because we go very deep and get all the details lined out before we begin anything else. When you do this, it's going to save you so much time on the development end that it saves you an inordinate amount of money. Time is money. We position the deep dive discovery as phase 1. And then at the end of phase 1, after that deep dive discovery, if we've discovered any new requirements that we didn't know about, we re-estimate the project. Let's talk about how we do that deep dive discovery. This is how we do it at Triad Web Advisors and how I teach the students inside the WP Project Managers Academy. The first thing we do is we start with a sitemap. That allows us to confirm with the client that these are the pages that you expect to be on your website. Then we take those pages and we create wireframes. This creates a spot for all of the pieces of content that are going to be needed for the website. And that leads to the content specification. In the content specification, you're going to spell out exactly what content already exists, exactly what content needs to be created or collected or organized, and you're going to decide who's going to do those activities. Once the content specification is done, that's when the content collection, creation, and organization should actually begin, whether you're doing it, a team member's doing it, or a third party is doing it. And that's what I mean by a content first approach. We don't do anything else other than the deep dive until that content is complete. Now, once you've got the content specification done and you've sent that off to whoever is doing those activities, then the next step is to define the functional requirements. Here's what happens when you define the functional requirements a lot of times. Then you have to go back and make changes to the previous deliverables, because often you find out things that the client wants or needs that wasn't revealed in any of the previous discussions. For example, let's say that you find out that the client needs an events calendar and you didn't know that. So that would be something you would add to the initial estimate that you gave the client earlier. Once you've got the functional requirements defined and approved, the next step is the technical requirements. Now, the technical requirements, I don't usually have the client approve those, but I do document every single thing that is relevant to the technical aspects of the website, because I'm going to provide this along with all these other deliverables to the client as a value add so that they can go back at any time and see how the website was built. And clients love that. They might just put it up on the shelf, but it's there if they ever need it. And last but not least is when we define the style and branding. And the reason that we do that last is because all those previous deliverables contribute to the look and feel of the website. So those are all the steps to defining the job in detail. And by breaking it out this way, it makes it super easy for the client, because you're asking them to approve little bitty chunks that each build on the previous one, instead of having them review and try to approve these big sections of the website, or trying to put all the style and branding and everything in at once and have them reviewing everything. They're just going to get confused and they're going to not focus on the things that you want them to focus on. By breaking it down, you're guiding their focus and you're giving them an easier way to approve all the specifications for the website. And the beauty part for you is when you've got all the pieces and parts all laid out and all planned, it's like taking books off of a bookshelf and you're just putting them all together and not having to worry about going back to the client over and over. Is this right? Is this right? Is this right? That is not the most effective way to handle your discovery process. Defining the job in detail eliminates tons of rework. That's going to save you money. And you have an hourly rate. So whatever time you save, whatever minutes or hours that you save, that is making more money. And that is project management for profit. Now, in future videos, I'm going to break down the other 5 principles of productivity for website development project success. And as a reminder, those are: break the job down, estimate the time and cost, get the right resources involved, agree on acceptance criteria, and establish a change control procedure. So if you like this video, I hope you'll subscribe and click the bell if you want to be notified about those other videos that will be coming along shortly. Thank you for watching. And until I see you again, remember, stay productive, stay strong, always keep learning, and remain forever grateful. Thanks. See you next time.